it's more about asking the right questions, because every time you ask a different question, you will have a different outcome. How to be a lifelong learner. So today I'm going to talk about lifelong learning essentials. Welcome to my alma mater. We are currently at University of British Columbia. This is where I got my PhD. So today I want to talk to you about some tips where you can become a lifelong learner and take learning to that next level. No matter what your age, no matter what your educational background, we are going to talk about lifelong learning. Let's take a walk. There are three types of learners. There are those who treat learning like a job, where you have to work really hard at it. And then there are those who approach it and treat it like a hobby. And then the third type is that there are those who treat learning, they're very serious about it, and that is something that they want to improve over time. They want to learn so that they can compound time. So comment below, which type of learner are you? The goal of learning is mastery. It is learning something new, and it is mastering things and learning from your mistakes as soon as possible. In order to do that, you have to be committed. You have to be committed to improving yourself and to set aside dedicated time to do so. Because your outcomes are going to be produced by the actions that you take persistently. And persistency is a state of action. So dedicate that time to producing habits that will get you there. I'm going to give you 5 habits that you can adopt immediately to become a lifelong learner. So habit number 1 is to seek new challenges. Always be seeking new things that you can be learning, new challenges that you can undertake in your life and career. And the first step in seeking new challenges is to really become familiar with the principles of that new thing that you're about to learn. Because principles are the things that don't change. They are the ones that time and time again, over time, they remain the same. So when you understand the principles, you can learn what you are trying to learn, and you are able to attack those challenges. Develop your own rituals to set aside time and dedicated space for learning. And then when you do so, practice those principles. Practice and repetition is key as well. Spend time to review what you have learned, the principles you have learned, and then repetition is when you repeat it over and over again to practice what you have learned. And repetition is key to commit what you've learned to long-term memory. I'm standing in front of the mathematics building in my university, in my alma mater, and that is where I took all my calculus courses. And in my degree, I took calculus all the way up to 3rd level, so 3rd year of calculus. And at the time, you know, when you're taking calculus, you're learning all these things, you kind of wonder to yourself, will I ever apply what I learned? Will I ever use it, right? But I still went all the way to 3rd year, not because I had to, it wasn't part of the curriculum, but because I wanted to challenge myself. It was a new challenge that I wanted to seek. And so now I'm going to share with you my secret on how I achieved straight A's on every math exam and every math course that I've ever taken in university. So when you're going through 1st year, 2nd year, 3rd year in calculus, you are learning different areas of calculus. So let me give you an example. In math, in high school, you learn about geometry, then you learn about trigonometry, but maybe you start with simple algebra or things like that, adding, subtracting, and then it becomes more complicated with algebra. Same thing with calculus. Every lesson, every semester builds upon the last. And with every different focus of math, there are different principles. So the first thing that I did was to focus on each principle. So in geometry, there are principles in how to do those math problems. In calculus, the same thing. You know, you start with integrals, and then there's multivariate integrals. With each time, there are different principles. So I spent dedicated work time and space understanding and mastering those principles. Once I've mastered the principles, then the next step is to practice. That is where repetition becomes very important. Repetition, in the way it looks like in math, is to just keep doing math problems, keep doing sample quizzes until you repeat it often enough and quick enough that it becomes committed to your long-term memory. So the same is true when you are learning anything new. You know, you have to be familiar, become familiar with the principles involved. Spend dedicated time to learn those things, to commit them to memory, and to achieve mastery. And then once you have achieved mastery on those things, then it is about repetition, practice. And with practice, you're committing it to your long-term memory. Habit number 2 is humble self-reflection. Take some time to think about what you have learned and to really assess how much you have learned. You know, studies in cognitive neuroscience show that information is very quickly lost if we don't review it soon, if we don't review it often enough. Oh, and as you can hear, I don't know if you can hear this, but there's a clock bell ringing behind me, and that behind me you see the clock tower. That is the main library in my alma mater, and that is also where I spend a lot of time in reflection and in repetition and practicing and becoming a lifelong learner. So when you are reflecting on your learning, when you are reflecting on how much you have retained, a good idea to test how much you have learned is to see if you can teach it. See if you can teach it to someone else. And the reason why this works is because when you are teaching, when you are mentoring someone on the subject and that new challenge you've taken on, most of the time when you are teaching someone, you want to make sure that you give good instruction to them, because ethically we want to be able to teach the right thing. We don't want to lead them down the wrong path or lead them astray. So when you teach someone, you're bound by your own ethics and your own morale that you want to teach the right information. So a good way to test how much you've learned is by teaching. And in doing so, you also learn as you are teaching. Because teaching also forces you to look at that material from a beginner's mind, which can also give you more clarity and insight. So look for ways constantly, creatively and innovatively look for ways that you can test yourself. And this will help you to understand the depths in which you have taken in this new knowledge. Habit number 3 is to solicit feedback. Talk to those experts, talk to people who have the knowledge that you want, and ask them for their feedback on how you're doing and the things that you've learned. And when you are listening to their feedback, don't take it with criticism, don't take it personally. Ask them to be brutally honest with you in terms of identifying gaps to your knowledge and ways that have helped them to achieve the knowledge they have and adopt what they've done. By mirroring what they've done to learn what they did, you can achieve that same success too. And when you're talking about experts who can give you that sort of feedback, remember to ask questions. Knowledge and gaining knowledge and becoming a lifelong learner is not so much about answering questions and coming up with the right answers. It's more about asking the right questions, because every time you ask a different question, you will have a different outcome. So remember to ask questions to those people who can give you the knowledge that you desire. So this leads nicely into habit number 4, which is careful listening. So welcome to Buchanan Towers. This area of campus is where I took all my language courses, which includes both English and Spanish. This is where I was learning Spanish as a third language. So with careful listening, when you are talking to experts who can give you the knowledge that you desire and you're asking them for feedback, practice careful listening. Listen to them on what they are saying and how they can provide you with knowledge and insights on the gaps that you might have in your learning. And as you're listening, it's easy not to pay attention if their viewpoints or their suggestions conflict from yours. But practice listening nonetheless, because you might be missing opportunities to improve if you're focusing on areas of disagreement. Instead, it's better to focus on why they have the viewpoint that they do. And in doing so, you practice also asking questions that will both improve your connection with them and build relationship with them, and also to improve your learning technique. Habit number 5 is to embrace curiosity, because a curious mind is a receptacle of learning. So read widely and read often. Every day I commit to reading at least 10 pages a day or a chapter a day, depending on how quickly I want to finish a book. Because if you do that and it becomes a routine for you and integrated in your life schedule, 10 pages a day, if a book, say the average book is around 200 pages, you're able to finish 18 to 20 books a year. Think about all that knowledge and insights you can gain from that type of education. Approach your life with the same wonderment that you had in your childhood and put that into adulthood. Be inquisitive. Don't be afraid to ask questions, because remember, when you ask a different question, you have a different outcome as well. And I'm a strong believer that the quality of life that you have, the quality of your life, also depends on the quality of the questions that you ask. So don't be afraid to ask questions and embrace being inquisitive. Let me know, how are you going to incorporate learning into your daily routine? If you like my content, remember to give me a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. Also ring that bell so you receive notifications each time I upload a new video.